Hi everyone, it's Autumn Bardot. Thank you for joining me on today's Shop Talk. We're going to be discussing a lot of different things. Thank you for joining me on this Friday. I have poured myself some little beverage here to get myself through a Friday. Yay, it's Friday. The weekend's coming. That means I get to write. Yay. The learning curve for authors is not a curve. It's a mountain. It's a giant mountain. And I wish it was a gentle slope, but a lot of times I just feel like, hi, Desiree. Is that Desiree? Did I spell it right? Or did I say it right? It really felt like a giant uphill battle for a lot of the 9 years that I've been doing this. So, today, what we're going to discuss is finding your voice, recognizing and fixing common writing problems, balancing social media, writing, and life, because you have to have that balance, right? Querying and indie versus traditional. We have to do it all. So it's kind of what it is for writers nowadays, whether you're indie or whether you are traditionally published. So in the description box below, I have actually included all of my various social media links. So if you want, you can just, check those out. If I mention something, you can just, check out the social media links. What the first thing before when I go to writers conferences, the first thing I really like is like I need to know the person's credibility. I hear a lot of speakers say things. I'm like, who are they and what have they done? For me, that's important, and so I'm gonna give you my cred. Okay, for what it's worth, I'm gonna give you my cred. Okay. So I have two traditionally published erotica books, and I will kind of tell you how I got from here to there in a little bit. But the two traditionally published erotica books are Legends of Lust, which is a collection of short stories, and Confessions of a Sheba Queen, which is a full-length novel, both by the same publishers. I've also have three traditionally published historical fiction, and those are Dragon Lady, which is about Zheng Yizhao, the real life pirate, the most successful pirate in the world. The Impaler's Wife, which is about Vlad Dracula's real Hungarian wife. Hi, Shakora. I'm in another group with Shakora. She's such a sweetie pie. And I'm actually going to be reading from Emperor's Assassin today, which is about Locusta of Gaul. She was Emperor Nero's real life professional poisoner. How's that for a profession? So these are, how many is that? That's a bunch of books. And then there's some back here. I think I'm probably hiding them back there next to the octopus, which are four different paranormal romance under a different pen name. So that is a total of 9 books under my belt. And if you ever have any questions, just I can see the comments right on the side. It's really for me easy to see them, and just throw out a comment, and I will look pretty often. I've been on Zoom meetings all the last couple weeks, so I'm used to like going back and forth from the camera to the to the comment. So those are my traditional and my indie published books. I have a degree in English literature, which really just means that I know a lot of big fancy words for authorial techniques. Okay, and I also have an MAD as a master's in education and instruction. So not really novel writing at all. I have, however, been teaching advanced literary analysis and writing for over 16 years. And I think in a lot of ways that helped me when I did my writing actually figure out and be able to analyze what other writers were doing and what I needed to be doing. I'm also an MFA dropout. MFA is, of course, Masters of Fine Arts. I did start a program a few years ago. It was expensive, and I thought it would be really good. It was good. It was a good program, except I work full time and I have a big family, and I was writing, and I had an agent, and I just could not fit in all of the novels that they wanted you to read. I think it was 3 or 4 novels that they wanted you to read a month, and a paper, and I just could not handle that with my schedule. So unfortunately, I'm an MFA dropout. Let's see. Oh, okay. My historical erotica novel, Confessions of a Sheba Queen, was featured on Stoya's New York City book club. So a few months ago, I did a Zoom meeting for that. It was supposed to be, a live book club, but then COVID, right? So they did a Zoom meeting, which was super fun. I've also had articles on writing erotica at booksbywomen.org and have been featured on several podcasts, including Girl Boner and Kinky Ladies Book Club. So those are gigs that my publisher got me. Of course, you can see because they were pushing the erotica. Okay, so currently, what am I doing now? I'm currently working on my next novel. I'm always working on a novel. And that is a modern comedy drama. It's best described as if Sophie Kinsella wrote American Gods. That's the best way I can describe it. And as some of you may know, what I started with COVID, we stayed home, and I thought this is the time to do something I've been wanting to do for a long time, which was to start a YouTube channel for new writers. There are so many questions that I see coming across the Facebook groups and all of that, and I'm just like, I have so much information that I want to share that I decided I'm just going to start that YouTube channel because that's the best way to get it out there. And I usually do it in pretty small bites. They're maybe 10, 15 minutes long, the episodes. Yes, I do not have an agent anymore, and I'm actually going to be talking about that next, Desiree. So yeah, we're going to discuss agents. I had agents too. So I have drop the link to my YouTube channel on there. So if you want to just look at my YouTube channel, I have 49 right now. Woohoo! So what I also like when I go to writing conferences and I talk to writers is I like to know their journey. Like, to me, when I was beginning all of this, I was like, tell me your writing journey, because I wanted to know, and I also read a lot of blogs on that. That was like 9-10 years ago, because I just felt like if I knew more of the journey, then I knew what to expect or not to expect, kind of thing. And so it's like, okay, so I want to start with my writing journey. And in a lot of ways, that writing journey, I'm going to tell you what my writing journey is, and then kind of how that kind of gave me all that information afterwards that I'm going to give to you. Hopefully that will help you along with your own writing journey. So I started Paranormal Romance. That's back there. It's a series of 4, and I started about 9 years ago. So I started about 9 years ago. I just had an idea. I'm like, I can write this, and I thought it was good. Thought it was really good. And here I am, I'm teaching literature. So you think it would just be bam, it would be really easy. And it wasn't, and it took a long time to write it, and I struggled, but I loved what I was doing, and I loved my story. What I did was, but I realized I was pretty clueless. I did go, and I revised it a million times, and that, I don't think that's a hyperbole. I think I really did revise it a million times. So what I did was I went to a whole bunch of conferences, and the Goldilocks story with the oatmeal, or this porridge is too hot, this porridge is too cold. That was some of the conferences. One conference was just too small, and I didn't really get anything out of it, and it was actually kind of annoying. The other conference was very large, probably the very best conference I went to, and that was the San Francisco Writers Conference. If you get a chance, if we ever have conferences again, I really urge you. It was huge, it was big. I met tons of people. It was very cool, and I learned so much information in that conference that my head was exploding, in ways. I came home happy, sad, crying, overwhelmed, but a great amount of information. So I guess my first tip would be, if you can go to a conference, to go to a conference. That would be probably a great thing to do. So I was totally clueless. I queried agents, and that was something we're going to discuss as well. I actually, like, at a conference, you can just sit there and they're across the, like, across the desk, and you get to give your, like, 3 minute spiel, not even 3 minutes, like an elevator pitch that you get to give them. And at the time, this was 9 years ago, they were all looking for dark paranormal romance. And this wasn't dark paranormal romance. In fact, now if I were to pitch it, I would say it would be like Lucifer meets X-Files. So not dark, but they were wanting dark at the time. So there was nothing, and I sent it to a bunch of agents, and I just got a lot of, this is nice, but no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. But here's the interesting thing. When I was writing it, I had a friend who was, or used to be, a big time writer for Harlequin, and then she since kind of left and dropped off. And I worked with her like in another profession, and I begged her, please look at my manuscript. I begged her, and she didn't want to look at it. She's like, no, you're gonna get angry, you're gonna get pissed off, you're not gonna want to do that. And I'm like, no, like, I need to know, like, I need a pro to look at my manuscript and tell me how to make it, like a pro. And so I think I just wore her down. I think I wore her down. And so she goes, I'll look at 10 pages. So she sat there with me in my office, and she went through it like line by line with a red pencil and told me what was wrong or what could be better with every single sentence. Now, I wasn't upset. I was overjoyed because somehow I just said, oh my gosh, I get what I'm doing now. This is a beginner. And any agent is going to look at this and say, beginner writer. And what she told me was eye-opening. I revised it probably another 20 times after that. Because as we go and discuss things, you're going to see, especially one of the things I'm going to discuss in a little bit, is what agents are really looking for in terms of your sentence structure and your writing. So what I did was I decided to self-publish. Self-publishing there wasn't all the information about that 9 years ago that there is now. I didn't know about all the Facebook groups. If there was all the Facebook groups like there are now about self-publishing, there wasn't a lot written about it. I was pretty much in the dark. I didn't have any contacts. I didn't have any formatters. I had no author friends beside that one. I was just wandering around in the dark. So my computer engineering son helped me format the first book. It took him all day. And I don't even remember how I got it. Oh, even the cover was like not a mess, but I didn't even know that you could like buy photos, from those like photo depot places. I mean, that was, like I said, 9 years ago. Now it's you pick a photo, you do a font, it's pretty easy. But back then I thought I had to have my own photo. So I did all pretty much the wrong things. I did what the experts told me to do at the time, which one of them, and they still are saying this, they tell you to blog. No. Yeah, no. And I'm going to say this a couple times in various places. I've known too many authors who've had no blog, no Twitter following, no Instagram following of any amount, and who have gotten picked up by both agents and have gotten great book deals. So you having a blog or a big Twitter following is not important. The truth is, it takes a book a year from the time you sign until it gets published. So a year is plenty of time for you to actually work on your social media. So I did some other stupid things. I gave out freebies, which was really dumb because I'd only written the one book. And so I was giving my book out free, and it had like 10,000 downloads the first time. And I had no second book. Like I said, I made all the wrong mistakes. So a lot of times when I see people, new authors, giving away their first book, I go, don't give it away, because the whole point of the giveaway, if you give it away, and I'm not a fan of giveaways, if you give it away, is for them to go to the next book. Because I have found just recently that if a reader likes your style, they will read all of your books. Like that's just how they do it. They read them all. So I wrote book 2, I wrote book 3, I think I stopped at 3. I didn't even know about Amazon, that you could like sell on Amazon. I did have a bunch of blogs look at it and leave reviews. I think there's maybe 80 or 90 reviews on there now. I don't look at too often. I am selling. I don't look at it too often. We'll kind of discuss how often I go look at my dashboard because I don't do it too often. But I did it pretty much all wrong. What I did then was I decided to go to historical fiction. I love historical fiction, and I thought I'm going to write this historical fiction. I do have bookmarks and I do have swag. I have book like if a reader, I have a newsletter, and there's a little thing on the newsletter where if you want, you give me your address, I'll send you some swag. So I have bookmarks. I have bookmarks and pencils and these little tech cloths. Just for your eyeglasses and stuff for your tech. That's kind of the extent of my swag. Then I decided to write my historical fiction. And what I did with that took about a year. So when somebody says, thank you, Elisa. So when I did the historical fiction, it took about a year because it was a lot of research. And my husband has a friend who's actually a biggie, but so big, but not too big in the publishing industry. And his wife actually is a prolific writer and has had many books. And what she does now is she gives critiques. Now, the critique was a lot of money. It was $1,500. And for that $1,500, I sent her my manuscript, my historical fiction, which was actually The Emperor's Assassin. And she read the whole thing. And then what she did is she focused on the first 50 pages and then really focused on like the first 20, 30, where she kind of went through and told me what I needed to do. So she basically gave a content edit, things that I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing. Now at this point with my historical fiction, this was my 4th book. Okay, so I kind of figured out a little bit more that I knew what I was doing. And she got back to me maybe like a month later with 10 pages of single-spaced pages of notes and information. So a lot of information. And honestly, I looked at it and I cried. I wept. And my husband just says, just close down the email, go have a drink, go do something. It seemed insurmountable. I opened it up a couple days later, and then I handled what she said my issues were, issue by issue. So as you can imagine, that was many, many more rewrites. After I felt it was solid, I sent it to agents, and I had 3 people interested in it. I boiled it down to 2, and once again I made a mistake because I actually chose the bigger agent, the big agent. Unfortunately, that big agent was in Canada. So that works a lot differently than the US. And I think for this one, she did have somebody want it, but for almost no money. And she said, no, it's worth more than that. And then she couldn't sell it. The problem was the Canadian publishers wouldn't pick it up unless I was Canadian. And then the US publishers, they were then trying to sell it to the Canadian people, were trying to sell it to the US publishers, which there was nothing. I got nothing from it. So then I told her I was writing another one. And so that actually was The Impaler's Wife. So I wrote The Impaler's Wife. That took another whole year. So, I'm looking on my email all this time waiting for, we sold, your book. And yeah, I never got that. I never got that email. So I sent her Impaler's Wife. She said I hit it out of the ballpark. I'm like, yay. And she couldn't sell that one. I think it could have been the same issue. She finally said, are you sure there's no part of you that's Canadian? And I'm like, yeah, no. From one of the Harlequin divisions that does historical fiction. And they said, we want you to cut out. Now, the book is told in 2 POVs. It's a POV with Alona, his wife, and that's in present tense. but then there's another POV, which is actually Vlad Dracula's in the past tense, but it's in the third person. And they said, we want you to cut Vlad's part out like by 50 pages. 50 pages. The book was about 420 pages. And then they also wanted it like shortened and tightened. So I did all that, and then they wanted more of their relationship. So I did all that. That took another couple months, and then it's called a revise and resubmit. So I did the revise and resubmit, and then I never heard back from the editor at Harlequin who asked for it. So this went on for about a year, and then I finally said, and then she had some promotions. She herself was being promoted within her, agency, and I'm like, you know what? I'm small fries to her. I'm not important. She's not gonna like push this the way I would like her to push it. So we parted amicably. We parted ways, and then I went back to the other agent, a U.S. agent who wanted it, and asked her, "Do you still want the Emperor's Assassin?" And she said, "Well," and this was in the middle of a conference for her. And she comes back an hour later in the email. She says, "I'm at a conference, but I'm going to read it on my way home." So her flight evidently from California back to New York City. And so I get an email Monday morning, "Yes, I want it." It's like, okay, great. So then I signed with her, okay, at a different agency. She wanted some different revisions. They all want revisions. Like they never go, "Oh, perfect, we'll take it." Okay, it seems like they always want some kind of revision. And her revisions, some of them, I felt like they didn't make sense to me. This is ancient Rome in the time of Nero, and she told me she wanted me to do some PC stuff. Like one of the things was Locusta, who's the protagonist, had to ask her slave if she would wash her hair. She said, "You have to say please." I'm like, "Well, what?" So I'm like, okay, fine. And then there was another line she just wanted me to take out. So there was just like little things here and there, but I did what she asked because, hey, you want your book to sell. So I was like going to do anything. If they said, stand on your head and spit nickels, I would have done that, right? So this did not sell. It did not sell to a publisher. And I knew she wasn't a good fit. She would call everybody once a year and do a check-in and ask what you were doing. And I knew she wasn't really a good fit. So if you do get an agent, make sure they're a good fit. And sometimes you really can't tell if they're a good fit until you talk to them a little bit. But one of the things she told me where I knew it wasn't a really good fit was she said that readers want to live vicariously through your protagonist. They want to be your protagonist. And I'm thinking, I don't. Like, I don't want to be any of these women. Like, it was fun to write about them, but I don't want to be them. So I knew right then, like, yeah, I don't know if she's going to be the right agent. So what happened then? While she was in the middle of trying to sell this, she sends me an email and she says, there's a publisher, she said, and they want to do a short story, erotica short story anthology, and would you be interested? Sure, why not? And so she said, send some samples over. So I just sent some of the steamier passages. I mean, they're just little steamy. They're not erotica. Okay, but some of the steamier passages, one from each novel that I had, which was these three. Okay, so I sent them over, and a week later, they said that they want you. So I didn't even have the book written, and they were willing to take me on, and I was sweating bullets. This was in May that they notified me, and they told me they wanted it in September. I'd never written erotica before. I don't even think I had read too much of it. So, but I did teach literature, so they sent me some information. They sent me one of their books. I read through it. I'm like, okay, I can write some nasty stuff. I got it done in the time lot. I basically worked from 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. There's 14 short stories. It took me 3 days per story, and that was for the rough draft, and then I would go back and then I would do all the revisions. I was sweating like it was just, I was just so nervous about it. I sent it in, and right after I sent it in, they said, she was let go or fired or moved on, whatever their terminology is for it, and you're gonna having a new acquiring editor. I'm like, okay. And at this point, like, I had no idea. I'm thinking, does this suck? Is it good? I mean, my kids didn't want it. My girls, they're adult women. They're like, they're 24 and 30. They're like, I don't want to read your erotica, Mom. I'm like, okay. My husband wouldn't read it. I don't blame him, right? I'm like, there's nobody here to read it, right? So I'm like, okay. So I sent it in, really just having, right, no idea what was going on. So I sent it in, and then during that time that they were doing like they read it, and then they come back and they tell you what needs to be revised. And I'm going to discuss all of that, and that's really what took me from being really wondering if I could write to being really confident about my writing, was having a professional editor go through a manuscript, and that was amazing. Like, that was probably one of the most amazing things that really helped me in a million different ways. So during this time, I sent my agent Dragon Lady, which is about Zheng Yizhao, the most famous pirate in the world, and she didn't even open it up. She just said, you can't write this. I'm the wrong person to write it. I guess because I'm not Asian. But you know what? I'm not a Romanian princess or a poisoner in Rome either. But evidently she didn't want to touch that one. So okay, and I thought, okay, well then I'm out. I'm done. There's nothing more here. And then she changed agencies. She moved agencies from her old agency to a new agency. So all of this stuff happens, and the writer is just like, oh no. And then a new agency they only want the agent to bring over the people that make them money. At this point, I had only gotten a small amount for this, so I wasn't any big money maker for the agent. So she said, I'll take Impaler's Wife, but you must cut out Vlad Dracula's POV. And that's once again, I'm like, no, you need it. That's the whole part of the story. Like, I have to have that in the story. I thought, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. She wanted it to be a historical romance, and that's not what I write. So I just said, goodbye, thank you very much, you've been very helpful, and toodles. So that was my two agent story. In the meantime, I had made contacts with her other authors. That's the nice thing about an agent, is you make contacts on Facebook or whatever, and you can say, oh, I'm also so-and-so's client. And there's a very famous author, her name is Lauren Smith, and we connected. She wrote a blurb for this one. She wrote a blurb for a bunch of my books. She has since, I believe, gone indie at this point, and I think she just got like a publisher's, whatever that publisher's thing is, and then there was like a big. She's amazing, and she sat with me one day in LA at a coffee shop, and she gave me all kinds of fabulous advice. And she says, I make way more on my self-pub than I do on my published works. You're going to have a lot more, you can do a lot more with things. And I found out that is very, very true. One of the things I didn't realize when they gave me this cover, because I had a choice of covers, is that, see, there's the naked lady on the cover, and then I can't post that anywhere. Like, it was a big no-no. So you don't have a lot of times choices with that. For the next book, and I'll even get to that, Sheba Queen, you can see it's just a face. You can actually read it in public. Okay, nobody knows that you're reading it. And I actually got a lot of input on this cover. I was very, very happy. They sent me the first cover. I said nicely, no, that's not the image I had in mind. And then I actually found this picture, and they actually bought the photo so that we could have this cover, which I love, love, love. Okay, so during the whole process of all the different edits for this, and I'm going to go through that in a little bit, I worked on Confessions of a Sheba Queen without an agent. Now at this point, my editor loves my stuff. She loves my stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just like, the fire's hot. I'm just going to go write some more stuff. So I did Sheba Queen. I wrote it over the summer during my summer break. And by write it over the summer, I mean I did the rough draft. And then then for me, the revisions and all the other stuff is just like easier, because it's not such intense brain work. To me, the rough draft is the most challenging part of the writing process. And I sent that into her in December, right before Christmas. And I heard back in January. They all loved it and they wanted it. And at that point, Legends of Lust had not even come out yet. It was scheduled for a January release. I was signing it. I got all of that money myself. I didn't have to share it with the agent. Now, it wasn't a lot of money, and so what you're going to hear me say a couple times is I make way more a month on my indie work than I do on the, you know, the traditional work. But I had very, very small advances because, I was a nobody, so they give you a small advance. I did pay money for a literary attorney when they sent me the contract. This is something an agent, if you get an agent, make sure you get an attorney as well, because a lot of those agents, they're not attorneys and they really don't know anything about the contracts. So my contract, I get 7% of a book sale for my traditional. 7%. That's nothing. Amazon gives me, what is it? We get like 40, 50%. Okay, I will get to the editor part. How did I find it? Well, the editor, Cindy, actually was the editor of the publishing house. So you just like get assigned to that. They're an acquiring editor, and she acquired it and they found it. But for my own indie work, I don't have one. I don't have one. I don't have an editor at all. So we're going to actually go through kind of my process. That I was $1,500 to pay the attorney to look at the contract. My contract wasn't much more. I took that kind of deal. That made me a traditional author. I had 2 books as a traditional author, and it gave me credibility. And I felt that credibility was worth it for me. That I had traditional publishing cred. Because still, a lot of times if you tell people you're indie, they just gotta go, kind of thing. So to me, yeah. Those Legends of Lust put me in the bookstores. So that was pretty cool. And it gave me cred. So now I was this traditionally published author. So here's what I did. So I had now a book published, and this was currently being edited by the publisher. So I had 2 traditionally published books, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to query The Impaler's Wife and Dragon Lady, because hey, I'm a traditional author now. Oh me, I'm gonna get a book deal. No. And over 100 rejections. Easily. 100. I was I am traditionally published. I had bizarre excuses. For Impaler's Wife, the one I got was, this kept me up all night, and it gave me bad dreams. Yay. But I did get a lot of agents asked to see it, but then a lot of them I never heard back. So I would send out the manuscript, the full, as they say, and then never heard back. So that's how that works sometimes. What happened to it? IDK. I even wrote down the name of my editor with the publishing house, and a lot of them go, oh, I know her. So, they could talk, right? So whatever it is, maybe it's not what they wanted. And we're going to actually look at kind of the reality of querying, because a lot of times it's just they're looking for something specific. And it doesn't matter how good your work is. If it's not what they're looking for, they just give it the pass. That's kind of how it works. I also had some agents tell me, oh, you write erotica, readers will be confused. Really? Because, one says erotica on it and one says historical fiction. But okay, whatever. I already had 2 pen names. I wasn't going to do a third. So when I did talk to my friend, the author, she did urge me to sell it. She said they definitely will sell. She gave me a great earful. I was in heaven, but I was also overwhelmed. So what I did was, the first one I put up was The Impaler's Wife. Now, I kind of knew what to do at this point. I knew that I needed book blogs. So I went on a book tour, a historical fiction book tour. You pay for that. What else did I do? I put it in some other historical book places. I also paid for a Kirkus review. I actually paid for a Kirkus review for all of them, not all at the same time, but at different times, because I thought it would be worth it, and it's an editorial review. There are also editorial reviews for Confessions of a Sheba Queen. I think that's Midwest Book Review. And there's also an editorial review for Legends of Lust, and I can't remember which one that is. But that you put the editorial book review, when you open the page to the book, and it'll have like all the stuff on the book, and then it'll have like editorial reviews. That's what everybody says about it. Okay, that's what the editorial review is. So I just thought that would be worth it, and it gave me cred. And actually, I think it boosts sales a little bit, because it's on their website, and people do look at that. They do look at the Kirkus reviews. I did say I was working on a novel now. So we're almost at the end of my story, and then we're going to get into craft, okay, stuff that I learned the hard way, craft. So right now I'm doing the second revision for my kind of comedy drama, which is called Goddesses Inc. And I am going to query that, but I'm just going to query it for fun. And I'm only going to query the top 10 agents. That's it. And if nobody wants it, fine. I will just sell it. Like, I will just put it up there myself. I know how to do it. I know what I want the cover to look like. I know everything that I need to do for it. But I'm just going to do it. And I told my husband, I'm going to do it for like a couple months. Like, I'll do the top 10, so however long that takes me. Maybe if I send out 3 a day. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Thank you. I'm just going to send out, 3 a day. And if they don't want it, then I don't need them. Right? But at this point, if I'm going to sell to an agent, I want the big money, because, like, why not?